The tropics are starting to heat up across the Atlantic, as we now have two of the most uniquely placed areas of interest that have been designated by the National Hurricane Center, and models have been absolutely screaming at some pretty significant development in the main development region. Unlike last time though, this is a situation where both the ensembles and operationals are very quickly picking up on this, and the operational runs are very significantly catching up to the ensembles. In today's video, we're going to be going over everything you need to know about all these hazards with these areas of interest. This is what we have going on across the Atlantic for you ladies and gentlemen. We have two areas of interest, one of them in the subtropics near the coast of Iberia, as a matter of fact, and another one in the central Atlantic Ocean that we're going to be watching out for. But we also have some potential development once again in the main development region that not just the operationals are looking at, but the ensembles have been really screaming about it over the last 24 to 48 hours. And some of the ensembles that previously were not on board with the previous signals are actually screaming the most about this potential area of development. So we're going to go ahead and dive through all the data, go through the NHC, and give you everything that we have for you guys right here. So starting off, we have our two areas of interest as of right now. This is what the situation. Both of them are 20% chance of development. This one over here is particularly unique across parts of these not the main development region, but rather the subtropical Atlantic right here, near 45 degrees north where this area of interest is. But let's go ahead and read this out. A non-tropical area of low pressure has developed over the northeastern Atlantic several hundred miles north-northeast of the Azores. This system could acquire some subtropical or tropical characteristics on Saturday or early Sunday, while it moves east-southeastward at 10 to 15 miles per hour towards Portugal and northwestern Spain. The opportunity for tropical or subtropical development should end by Sunday night when the system moves over an unfavorable area of conditions. For more information, see the high seas forecast. That's what we got. 20% chance of formation in the next 48 hours and in the next 7 days. Unique because I haven't really seen an area of interest be tagged over here, at least since I've done Pat's Path Predictor for almost 5 years now. So definitely a unique situation I want to keep an eye on, but we will kind of talk more about that tonight on the Triple P show as well. Here's what we have as of 2 p.m. now and as of what's going on in the central subtropical Atlantic. A weak area of low pressure located over the central subtropical Atlantic a few hundred miles east-southeast of Bermuda is producing an area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Development of the system, if any, is expected to be slow to occur while it drifts west-southwestward through Sunday and then turns northward early next week. 10% in the next 48 hours, 20% in the next 7 days. So we're going to want to pay attention to that and keep an eye on how things are going to progress. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and shift over to our ensemble models, talk about those, and then go from there. So here is what we have for you guys. This is the European ensemble. We're going over all 5 of the ensemble suites that Weather Nerds has for us, just to give you an idea and paint a picture as to what's going on. So this is the situation that we have going on across the Atlantic. Across the Atlantic, you have a few ensemble signals in the northeastern Atlantic, the extreme northeastern Atlantic. You have one going on over here in the subtropical Atlantic, right in the middle smack center of the Atlantic, and you have more signals going on in the main development region as we have several very healthy tropical waves moving over much of the MDR. Let's go ahead and see what's going on 48 hours out at this current point. You start seeing a bit of a signal popping up over here. I'm not really paying too much attention to that at this current point. The main thing that I am watching, as a matter of fact, is expected to be coming off the coast of Africa in the next 4 days at the time this run initialized. So this will be Tuesday night at this current point. On Tuesday night, a very healthy potential tropical wave is going to be coming off the coast of Africa from part of the wave train that we've seen all season, but this one's going to be a bit different, as this system is expected to potentially organize and strengthen across the main development region and then move into the Atlantic Basin according to the early projections and strengthen even further. The European isn't the only model that shows this. I'm going to show more of the ensembles in just a few minutes, but that's the main situation that we're watching tonight. So this is what we got going on up for the next, by the time we get to Wednesday night. At this current point, Wednesday night, you start seeing pretty significant of a strong signal. I know the European operational, spoiler alert, wants this to develop right away. That's most likely not going to happen. I think the Europeans a bit aggressive initially, so I do want to preface with that. But ultimately, this is a very, very strong signal, stronger than all the signals that we have seen previously here in the main development region this year. I know we've been striking out on a lot over in this region because of the El Nino, but this seems a little bit different, and I'll show you why in just a second. But going to 6 days out right here, let's go ahead and show that. 6 days out, you have a continued very strong signal going on across much of the MDR that continues to persist by the time we get to 7 days out. And look at this. There is a very significant amount of power with this signal. Granted, this is the European, and the European's been pretty aggressive with its forecast, especially the Ensemble suite, over the course of the year or so. But keep in mind, this is 168 hours out. Gonna want to start paying attention to it. By the time we get to 8 days out, you're seeing a very strong signal. In fact, multiple areas of 900 millibar areas right here. 968, 983, 982, 982. Many of these are in the 990s, by the way, and at hurricane strength. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. And as we go to 9 days out, the signal remains very strong. On the weaker end, you're looking at tropical storm strength. On the stronger end, you're looking at a very powerful hurricane potential at this current point in time. And then as we go ahead and go to 10 days out, the system, at least according to the southern ensembles, may approach the Lesser Antilles. Keep in mind, this is 10 days out. Things are obviously very, very subject to change at this current point. But ultimately, you're looking at the power numbers with this, and this is kind of concerning to me. Look at this. 946, 961, 964, 985, 986, 994. This isn't just a small part of it. This is multiple ensembles covering multiple areas of the suite over here. So it's definitely a factor that we're going to want to pay attention to. Let's go ahead and skip an extra 2 days now. But look at this. This is a very strong signal right here. Granted, it is a bit shifted a bit further away from each other now that the models are a bit further out in terms of the time frame. But very, very, very big upswing. This is your classic contact and power signal right here, according to the European. You have a lot of ensembles, and a lot of these ensembles are showing strong power potential. That is your classic signal for any big major development. Now, granted, this is 12 days out by the time I'm showing you this. Things are subject to change. Take this with a grain of salt. But once again, got to reiterate this. 946, 965, 949, 984, 971, 981, 984. This is spread out across multiple areas. 962, by the way, further to the west. This is spread out across the entire area that the European is showing. And it's not just the European that's showing this. Matter of fact, the one ensemble, the GENC, that has been very conservative this year, not showing very much going on in the main development region, or really any development at all when the NHC has designated areas of interest. They are absolutely screaming, especially in the later runs, about this potentially being a big problem. Let's go ahead and go back to that. And let's go ahead and show the GENC. Here is your GENC. This is the 0Z run 12 days out. You're looking at this and going, Patrick, it's not as strong, it's not as powerful. You have to keep in mind two things. Number one, this is a conservative run right here. This showed barely or any ensembles with the previous systems that we had that moved in NHC tagged, and they ultimately ended up not panning out. This is the GENC. This is your most conservative model out of the 5 suites that we have for you tonight. Rather today, I'd say. I keep saying tonight. Watch the Triple P show. You'll see tonight. But ultimately, look at this. Very similar situation to the European. And look at the 6C too. Granted, the 6C doesn't have all the observation data, but look. More power. The 6C is very much favoring power. Is the 12Z out just yet? Let's see. Let's take a look. It is not out yet for today. We'll take a look at that later. But the 6C, more power everywhere. This is also your most conservative model in general for Tropics. If this is screaming big development right here, you're going to want to pay attention. This is just the ensembles, keep that in mind, but this is a power signal 100%. It's not just the ensemble showing this. I know I'm jumping around, but this is also something we need to talk about. As of now, the Client Prediction Center is also seeing what we're seeing right here. They have designated an area of potential development in the main development region for next week when this whole system correlates. This is for August 26th to September 1st. About a 20% chance of development right here, greater than 20% chance, but it's finally there. It wasn't there at all this season. It wasn't really anywhere in the Atlantic this season, and we had 3 surprise systems. Now, looking at what's going on with the Client Prediction Center, with their hazardous outlook, they are designating not just this coming week, but the week after for some potential tropical development going on in the main development region. That is why I am taking this very seriously, because the CPC is also seeing what the ensembles are seeing. So, with that being said, let's shift over back to the ensembles, and let's go ahead and show you what the rest of them are going for. So, here is the GFS. Definitely a bit of an interesting one for sure. Definitely more of the conservative side of things, but still, looking at a potential power signal according to some of the ensembles right here. Yes, it's not as spread out, and yes, it's not as much of an ensemble suite as the European or GENC, but it is still there, and you're going to want to pay attention to see how things will progress. That's what's going on with that. Here's the European AI run. Not as big in terms of the power, but it's definitely showing a signal from what we're seeing. Let's see what the 12Z is going for. This is the 12Z from yesterday. So compare that to the 0Z now. Definitely a bit more of a shift, a bit more to the west, I would say. But it's still very much there, and it's definitely an interesting situation we're going to want to pay attention to. Keep in mind, by the time I'm showing you this is 12 days out. Things are very subject to change. Let's go ahead and look at the FNV3. FNV3 and the GENC, it appears, has kind of switched places. The FNV3 isn't showing too much of a signal going on. This was usually the more aggressive run compared to what we saw previously. This is what we were seeing with the 18Z, if I can actually pull this up. It's having a hard time doing that at this current point right here, but the 18Z from yesterday I know was showing a bit more of a power signal showing this. The 0Z's definitely gone down. Let's see what the 6Z is showing. The 6Z is starting to show that back up once again. So, yes, there is a few inconsistencies with some of the runs right here, but the All Reliables and the GENC have definitely started to show some of what we're seeing right here, and it's definitely what we're going to want to pay attention to. But unlike the previous times, this isn't just the ensembles that are screaming about this. The operationals are catching up very quickly in a lot of the instances with what's going on the ground. So let's go ahead and get started. Here is the European operational. I know I did spoiler it earlier in the video, but this is the situation that we have going on. It wants tropical development to happen right away. That's most likely not going to happen. I think the European is being way too aggressive with it at this current point. Like 997 millibars just southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. That's most likely not going to happen, in my opinion. I do think quick development can happen, but I don't see this just exploding off the bat as it gets off the coast of Africa. I don't see that scenario happening. I think it's going to take a couple of days to get its act together and then start getting its act together in terms of its development. I know I just repeated myself. Try me. So ultimately, this is what we have going on. This is a now potential hurricane, according to the European, going on literally 6 days out across parts of the main development region. Personally, I don't see that happening unless something completely unexpected happens. I think the European is being too aggressive, and then it's starting to move in here. I think there's some wind shear that's going to be impacting this and chipping away at the structure, but still, it's at least a tropical storm, according to the ensembles, and not the ensembles, rather the operational, as it's moving towards the subtropics, and then it re-strengthens to hurricane strength as it goes further to the out. But by the time it does this, it's 15 days out, so there's still a bit of uncertainty in regards to this. But taking a quick gander of what I'm seeing, it's definitely a lot more possible now than what we were looking at previously. It's not just the European showing this. Let's go ahead and show the GFS run as well. GFS, I know, is a bit more on the conservative side, at least for what we've seen this year, but we'll go ahead and show you what's going on. GFS for the 0Z, not really showing too much tropical development, at least for what's going on with the operational, but the 12Z has definitely started to show and peak a little bit of interest right here. Let's go ahead and pull this up for you guys right here. Here's the 12Z in terms of tropical development. Wants tropical development to happen southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands over here. Gets up to tropical storm strength according to the GFS. It stays a bit further to the south compared to what we've seen previously. The organization on it on the GFS is definitely lacking a little bit, but I will say that now that we're looking at this, the GFS is now showing some potential tropical development with this. So we're 2 for 2 in terms of our operational showing stuff right here. Let's go ahead and take a quick gander at what the European AI is showing with us as well. Here's the 12Z AI run. It's not as organized. It's kind of been a bit difficult in terms to get a good gauge on the power that the AI has, especially compared to the European that's dealing with, but it is showing tropical development potential in the main development region, so we're going to want to pay attention to that. Here is the Canadian run right here. I know the 0Z was far more aggressive than what the 12Z Canadian is showing. We'll go ahead and show you that right here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But the 0Z Canadian was a bit more on the aggressive side from what I've seen. So the Canadian has the system moving through. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm a bit mistaken right here. The 0Z Canadian didn't really show too much going on. Let's see what the 12Z is showing at this current point. Okay, so the Canadian's definitely a bit all over the place from what I'm seeing with this. It's still going to maybe take some time for the Canadian to show some signals going on right here, but we'll have to pay attention to it. I'll keep you updated on it. So we're kind of technically 2 for 3 in terms of tropical development. Actually, it was the Icon that was showing some pretty strong development at the 0Z. The 12Z is a bit more conservative right here. Here's the Icon. This system moves off the coast of Africa, starts to get its act together, organizes, and then gets to tropical storm strength, kind of hovers around that strength, mainly due to conditions that we'll get into in a little bit. But now we're pretty much 3 for 4 in terms of our operational run showing tropical development. So that's what we're seeing on the model side of things. What are the conditions going to be looking like going forward? So here are our water temperatures, ladies and gentlemen. Taking a quick gander of what we have going on across the main development region, you're looking at anywhere between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius water temperatures, where the system's going to be moving off the coast of Africa and then moving through for the first, I'd say, half of its journey across the MDR. Then as it moves further to the west, the waters do cool off slightly to about 27 degrees, but still plenty warm for tropical development. This is all in Celsius, by the way. The conversions to this is anywhere from about 80 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who do not use the metric system. But as we get towards the Atlantic Basin, and I think this is part of the reason why we're seeing this huge power increase according to the models, you're looking at 29 plus degrees Celsius Fahrenheit. No, not Fahrenheit, Celsius. That's 84 degrees plus Fahrenheit for you guys right there. That is very warm, and especially warm for this part of the Atlantic right here. Matter of fact, here's what we have for the climate reanalyzer. We are very much in the second hottest water temperature territory going on right here across the Atlantic. We have eclipsed 2024's area in terms of its water temperatures in late August at this current point. We're at 25.07 degrees Celsius. That's about 77 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who live in the United States. And then we are looking at 2023's, which was a bit warmer than that, but 2026 is not too far behind. We've eclipsed 2024's water temperatures. We've eclipsed it since earlier this month. We had a huge water temperature surge that was kind of unexpected, caught a lot of people off guard, and now this is where we're at this current point. But water temperatures isn't the only thing I'm paying attention to right here. The other thing I'm watching out for is our ocean heat content. Here is the ocean heat content for you guys right here. Let's go ahead and open this up and zoom in where we're currently at. This system's going to be moving into areas of about 25 to 50 OHC across the first half of its journey around the MDR. But as we get to the second half, this is when the OHC numbers really start spiking. You go from about 25 to 50 to about 75 to 100 OHC in the span of about 200 to 300 miles. That's a pretty significant gradient right there, and a pretty significant jump in terms of your ocean heat content. What OHC typically is, I always say this, it's basically your fuel tank. What is your fuel tank that you have going on across much of the Atlantic? How warm is your water and how deep down is it going? Well, the water temperatures that we're seeing go down relatively deep across much of the Atlantic, especially in the Caribbean and especially in the Atlantic Basin, which now have many areas cracking 100 OHC. It's definitely a situation that we're going to want to watch out for and pay attention to, especially if the system travels this far to the west. It's going to have much better OHC to tap into, and we're going to want to watch out for it if it moves that far to the west, according to what I've seen with some models. Now, water temperatures and the OHC look great, but the main question I have now is, what does the wind shear and what does the dry air aspect of things look like? Because those are our wild cards this year. And for that, let's go ahead and pull up the European. We're going to the 0Z. We're going to show this wind shear and the dry air aspect of things right here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and go to 96 hours out to get started. What we have going on, you have the tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa. This shear right here where the system's around, this isn't exactly shear. A lot of this is kind of the system producing its own winds right here. So I'm kind of discounting this area right here. The area I'm paying attention to is this area in the central MDR and the area further to the north where there is stronger wind shear. That is where your big wind shear is at this current point. Let's go ahead and go an extra 24 hours for you guys right here. The wind shear ahead of this system in the main development region is relatively quiet across the MDR until you get to about this point, this choke point right here. The MDR shear is quiet. It's not as weak as it was last year. It's still a lot stronger due to the El Nino, but it's quiet for the next few days. I think this is also part of the reason why the European wants this system to ultimately just intensify right off the bat, which is, I think, part of the reason. Then you start seeing the wind shear retreating a bit further to the northwest, which is kind of interesting for me, but you do have shear a bit further up to the north kind of impacting it. But looking at this, and this is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, right here, why the ensembles are screaming, especially in terms of the power areas that we are seeing with the ensembles. This right here, the wind shear across the Atlantic Basin collapses, and this gives a pretty significant opening for some potential strengthening as long as the dry air doesn't be a factor. And we'll talk about that in a second. But this is what we have going on. This is why the European strengthens it down the line, because you have a situation where you don't have much shear. This shear, ignore this. That's more so the storm producing its own wind field right here. So we can kind of ignore that. This is the main bulky area I'm paying attention to. That is far enough away from the subtropics for potentially big intensification. That on its own. I'm not factoring in dry air just yet. Don't take what I say at face value. I'm just showing you, based on the conditions I'm seeing, the first three look really good. In fact, the best we have seen all season for big tropical development. The big wild card now is, what is our dry air aspect? Let's go ahead and show you that. Across the MDR, you're still dealing with Sahara air layer. That's pretty much been a given at this current point. But you have a very big moisture surge because of this tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa. It moves off the coast of Africa. The system gets its act together. There is dry air lingering to the north over here that we are going to want to pay attention to. This system, however, is producing its own convection. It's producing its own moisture pocket, according to the European. This is also a bit of an interesting situation right here. I am a little skeptical with this. I am skeptical with this big dry air in front of it. The main question is it going to intrude? Because what the European is showing here is kind of banking on the fact that the system's going to develop right away and produce its own convection. And that and keep the outflow it produces will keep the dry air out. I am a little hesitant to say this right here. You have a pretty significant moisture pocket, partly due to this, but you have pretty significant dry air intrusion going on to the southwest right here, according to the Euro, if this holds. This is very, very tricky. This is a very big wild card until we get to the Atlantic Basin, when this dry air starts mixing out and you start seeing more moisture and you start seeing more of a potentially strengthening scenario right here, excuse me. But ultimately, it is an interesting situation that we're going to want to watch out for. Just for curiosity, what's the GFS starting to show with its 12Z? Okay, the GFS is a bit more localized right here. You have something going on a bit further up to the north. The GFS wants this wave a bit further to the south as well, which I think is kind of helping its development chances initially. But I would say that if you want some very big development to happen, this system in the first 72 hours after it touches down in the Atlantic is gonna have to develop. It's going to have to. And I know the ensembles and the operationals are both saying that this is most likely going to happen, but this is going to be a situation where ultimately the first 72 hours, this system has to do something. There's no ifs, ands, and buts between it. Yes, the shear is good, the water temperatures are good, but the dry air is by far its biggest inhibitor. So the first 72 hours, it's on the clock. And it's going to have to get its act together very quickly for some big development. The models, a lot of them are saying that it will do that. Conditions are definitely more favorable for that as well. But we're going to have to see how things pan out. And we'll continue to keep you updated on all these things here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. So with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I hope you enjoyed it. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.